What up? What it do? It's your boy Q with Vision IB TV on YouTube and across a few other platforms. Jules, God bless, and blessings and love to everybody. As always, I'll show my face momentarily, but just a huge shout out to anyone and everyone who will be stopping by. I appreciate every single one of you guys and gals in advance. As always, the red carpet is rolled out to every single one of you. So I do appreciate any type of love and support that you guys show. Let me just take this out the way. All right, so um, I've been actually wanting to do a few streams these past few days, and across the entirety of Holy Week. But alas, there's been a few hiccups here and there throughout the week, making it near impossible to actually get on to a stream. You're good, Jules. The fact that you're even here at all, I appreciate it. Um, but yeah, throughout the week, there's been a few things that have happened that have made it near impossible to get on a stream. And so tonight, finally, I got a chance to get on. So yeah, just a few things that I do want to talk about. I don't think I'll take too long. I don't think I'll be here for like hours on end, maybe 1 or 2 hours tops. Um, but I wanted to primarily celebrate Resurrection Sunday with you guys. Those of you who are believers in Christ or believers in the faith, whether you're a newly born Christian or if you're a long time, faith warrior, right? Either way, I want to take a moment to celebrate together, right? As siblings in Christ, as siblings in the gospel, and just wanted to, pretty much hear what everybody has to say. If you guys have testimonies that you want to share, how you came to Christ, how you came to the faith, how you found God, all that good stuff. I'm always happy to hear testimonies. Matter of fact, recently, um, a new supporter and slash subscriber to the channel sent me an email, and if he gets on here and I see him in the live chat, I'll ask him for permission to read the testimony out loud. If he grants me that permission, then I'll do it because I found it pretty fascinating and pretty interesting. And there was like a few small similarities here and there between his testimony and other people's testimonies that I've seen in the past, and even a little bit of my own. I could see a tiny bit of my testimony in his testimony, and so I thought it was very inspiring and motivating. And who knows, like his testimony might potentially help others find God and pretty much come to the faith, right? So I don't know if I like this view like this, but I guess we'll just leave it like this for now. But anyways, aside from potentially hearing what you guys have to say about the gospel and God and how you found the faith, right? I also want to make the stream to honor, anyone who has ever gone through any type of assault, right? Apparently, I came across a video on TikTok talking about SAAM, that's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and apparently April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I was not aware up until like a day or two ago when I found that video, pretty much promoting it, right? Promoting the awareness of that. And so I wanted to pretty much, take out a moment and pretty much honor anyone who has ever gone through that and is still here today to share their survival story, or share how far along they've come since that moment in their life, and anything that they're wanting or willing to share. you know um, I've always been a huge advocate against any type of assault, especially that one, right? And I've always lent my platforms or my channels for anyone and everyone who wants to come and tell the story, and potentially share ways of getting through it, right, and overcoming it, etc. And any helpful tips that might help anyone who has gone through it and still struggling to get out of like a certain type of depression or mindset, um, or have gone through it and haven't really found a way out. William, what's going on, William? Blessings and love to you, brother. So yeah, those are the two things that I kind of want to talk about tonight. So, first things first, celebrating the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You know, it was on a day like today, right? A day like today, because sadly, um, there's no way of confirming with exactitude uh, just how correct the calendar lines up with what happened and all that. But we celebrate on a day like today that he did resurrect, and he is alive and well and sitting at the right of the Father, right, in heaven, waiting for his moment to come down and pretty much cast out judgment on the earth when the moment is right. Pretty much all the evildoers across the earth will perish, to his word and his sword, right? And anyone and everyone who thought that they had the last laugh doing evil pretty much will be ended, because Jesus is a Prince of Peace, but he also is a consuming fire, right? And so God will have the last laugh. God will make things right, and God, through Christ Jesus, will act out his fair judgment, right? His righteous fair judgment across the earth. And like I said, every evildoer will perish. Every person. Hey, Rachel. God bless. God bless. Yes, you haven't seen me in a while because I've been gone for about 2 years. But I'm back. I'm back. Pretty much like I say dipping my toes, but at this point I'm dipping my foot back into the live streams. But it's good to have you. I recognize your face and name, so that's always nice when I can actually remember and recognize certain usernames. Had a little, my nose was like a little wet and like you know allergies and all that. 6 seconds. Yeah, so I won't get into like politics, but what I will say, William, is as I've always said, you know, the world is a stage, and all the higher ups in that sector of politics and governments are all in on it, to a certain degree and to a certain level, right? They are working together at a certain point, or to a certain point. So it's not just him. It's it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people within the government and behind the scenes, people who control the governments, etc. But they're all in on it together though. So um, yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, see, and that's why I don't know if you remember or if any of you remember, back when the elections were going on. Um, you know, I was very clear. Oh man, we got brother Red in the house. We got brother Red in the house. Blessings and love to you, brother. Thanks for being here. But yeah, I always was very clear and adamant about, I know people want to have hope, and people want to, you know, they want to have someone that they can put their hope and trust in when it comes to politics and all that. And especially when you're living in a time where everything's going to crap. Um, I appreciate that, bro. I receive it. When everything's going to crap, you want to have that hope, and you want to have that peace of mind that maybe they're not all in on it, right? And remember talking to a lot of people who were like, oh, but God is choosing him, and like, look at the some of the policies that he's behind and that he supports, and you'll see that it's kind of like God's will for him to be in there. And what I used to say was, well, it's God's will for God to allow him to be in that position for sure. Because if God really didn't want to, right, he would make sure no one would be in that position, right? But there's a difference between God choosing someone for a position and God allowing someone to step into position, because it will eventually fulfill Bible prophecy. There's a huge difference between that, right? Um, I'm of the mindset that nowadays, like, after, right, after what Jesus did, right, that he gave his life and then resurrected. After the fact, and even a little before that, God has stopped selecting and choosing kings, you know, for different provinces. Back in like the Old Testament, back when like King David and King Solomon and all that, yes, God appointed kings, right, for his people, etc. But um, and I'll do a whole separate stream about this altogether another day. Um, but I'm of the mindset that nowadays, um, he doesn't do that. That I don't think it's his. He doesn't get involved the same way he doesn't get involved with people winning or losing the lottery. He doesn't get involved with politics or appointing people to positions of power. He doesn't get involved, right? But what he does is he does allow things to happen the way they are meant to and supposed to fulfill Bible prophecy. So again, there's a difference, and there's evidence of that. The difference between then and now, why he used to appoint, right, kings and positions of power versus why he doesn't do it now. There's a reasons behind that, and like I said, I'll do a whole separate stream about that altogether. Um, uh, at least he said no more wars, etc. Then wanted peace. Price, kidding. He's set the world on fire. Would call them out. Uh, yeah, I don't want me to talk about Charlie. I could, but I won't. It was really about supporting Joe, but once nothing happened with the sleep files, and then went to war. And so, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be people who will say he was a better choice, right? But again, it's always going to happen the way God will allow it to happen, because again, whatever God allows is because it keeps pretty much like stepping into Bible prophecy. Um, I'm not religious, but there's a guy he's missing in action. All these kids are. So I hear you, brother. I hear you, but there's a lot more to it than that. Yeah, exactly, and this is what I mean. Like, you know, there's a lot of people, and with all the respect to William, that what I'm about to say is in no way, shape, or form for like to make you feel bad or to judge you, right, or the way you think. Because I do understand your mindset and I understand where you're coming from, right? It's a very human, logical way of thinking. If you're not aware of how things will end, right? Um, Once you know how things will end and how the Bible talks about what will happen in the end times, then you'll understand and be more at peace of like what's going on now, right? Um, yeah, that's the thing, is people still have free will, but so I'm trying to find a calm, peaceful way to explain this. There is an end game to everything, right? Um, and there is an end to all things, right? I think that's even a scientific uh, train of thought as well, where there's a beginning, there must be an end, right? So all these things that's happening, right? Not only in Gaza, but in other places around the world, which by the way, are never talked about. Like, let me just put this, because if I don't share it, I'm gonna feel stupid. But um there is there's a magazine that dedicates its time to speaking up um, about everything to do with Christians around the world who don't have the same freedom that we do, right? Because here in the States, we don't know how good we have it here in the States. Sometimes we forget how blessed we truly are here in the States to be able to talk about the gospel, to talk about Jesus, to talk about God, to talk about the Bible, to talk about our faith so openly and freely, with little to no consequences that to suffer, right? But when you go to China, when you go to Africa, when you go to a bunch of other like countries, right? People are killed for their faith. People are killed for their faith in Christ. People are tortured, thrown in jail. People are, violated, assaulted, right? Just for preaching about the gospel, just for preaching about Jesus, right? All around the world, this happens on a normal daily basis, right? And but here in the States, like, you don't see any of that because we have that freedom. We have that blessing that allows us to share our faith with someone. The worst thing that could happen when we share our faith with someone here in the States is, they might yell at you, they might try to assault you like physically, right? They might try to spit on you, they might try to like mock you, curse you out, but nothing about throwing us in jail or like killing us off. You know what I mean? Um, but when you go to Africa and go to China and different parts of the world, you see beheadings. You see just straight up, just people getting taken out, whether it be through the sword or through the gun, right, or through the knife. Um, and so, two star then say, yeah, yeah, that's the thing. So you're always going to have people who have infiltrated the faith, right, and evil people who will say that they're of the faith and say, whether it be because they are not right in the head, or they have a demonic attachment. They will say, oh, I'm offering this person in the name of the Lord. Trust me, the Lord is not telling or asking anyone to kill anybody right now. There was a place and time for that back in the Old Testament, and there's good reasons for it, right? Because they were not normal people. There were abominations, like actual abominations and demonic, beings. But that's a different story altogether. But nowadays, God, trust me, God is not telling or asking anyone to kill anybody, and He never will, because that's not part of the plan right now, right? And there's no purpose for that. So anyone who is of the faith and of Christ or the gospel, and they're saying, oh, I'm going to do this negative thing against this person because God told me to. Nope. Don't believe them. Don't believe them. They are not of God. They are not of Christ. They are not of the faith. They are not of the gospel. And they are either demonically possessed, or they are something's wrong up here mentally. So never believe that. True, genuine Christians not only want people to live. This is why we fight for, you know, uh, against abortions and all that, because we believe in life. We believe in life, and we believe in allowing for people to, potentially one day come into Christ at one point or another. Mm. Name because he had no. I don't know. Are you talking about Trump? If you're talking about Trump, if you are, I'm not sure if you are, but if you are talking about Trump, I'll be the first one to tell you he is not of the faith. He is not a Christian. He is not a Christian. Just in case you're talking about him specifically, that man is not a Christian. That man, and it's funny because like I remember talking about this with Kiko and producer Jay at some point, and I was like, he was asked his first term, the little guy that's in charge. Yeah, that guy. Listen, I'll put it plain and simple. No one in there, no one in his circle, right? No one in Trump's circle is a legitimate Christian. No one in there is of the faith. No one. So, like you said, let's call a spade a spade. All of those are not spades. Like if we're gonna say a spade is a Christian, none of them are spades. I don't know what they are, but they're jokers. That's what they are. They're all jokers. Okay. If I had to choose a card that they represent, they're all jokers. None of them are spades. Um, so like none of them are Christians, not even one. Um, and there'll be people who will argue the contrary, but the reality is that everyone in those higher up positions in the government, especially if you're in the inner circle of the president, yeah, like I know there's going to be some type of like I don't know disclaimer or whatever or like an alert or warning after this video like finishes like oh the misinformation blah blah blah, but all of them are part of the cabal, right? All of them are part of uh, I'm trying to find a way where, that I can say this without without giving the actual like name away, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. Um, exactly, exactly, and even before that, he got interviewed. He got interviewed, and they asked him something along the lines of like, you know, his testimony, or when did he like convert to Christ, when did he come to Christ, or putting his right hand on the Bible and swearing, that he is a true born again Christian. And he just always, went around the bush. He always like dodged the question or redirected it or uh, answered the question with another question. He never once has said, "Yes, I am a genuine, true, born again Christian. I got baptized in such day by this pastor at this church." None of it. None of it. He always like either dodges the question altogether or just redirects it somehow. Yeah, yeah, that's true. And it's funny because it's one of the few moments where the Pope actually says something correct. Yes, God will not answer people with blood on their hands. That is correct. That is very true. But that's like one in a million times that the Pope has actually said something accurate. Spiritually speaking, or oh man. Uh, okay, and the idea, right? The concept of wanting to make America great. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to, like rebuild America, right? To into a better America, right? Or make it, bring it back to its glory days, if you will, right? Um, Back in, like, I don't know, like 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, right? If we could go back to those days, that would be awesome, right? That would be awesome. But the problem is that when you place all that responsibility in one person, and not only one person and their team, but that one person and their team who do not believe in God and do not have God at the center of anything, and they do not believe in Christ, they don't have Jesus in their hearts, they're not of the faith, it will only lead you into, from bad to worse. You know what I mean? Yeah, we're I mean, sadly we're not. And there's gonna be people out there who are gonna say, oh, there's always good and bad times, like throughout the decades and centuries. It's never from bad to worse ultimately. I'm like, no, no, actually, biblically speaking, there is such a thing as things going from bad to worse. That's just the way prophecy talks about it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's true. We're never getting those days back from the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. For me, in my opinion, from what I know, those are like the golden years in the last like few centuries. Um, there's the whole story with like Tartaria, and that's a separate video and stream altogether. Hopefully, I can bring Kiko and producer Jay to talk about Tartaria. Um, but as far as like the last few centuries, like in my opinion, the 70s, 80s, and 90s were like the golden years for like America, for the United States mainly. Um, can't get a lot of this one land said this one. Yeah, sad times ahead indeed, and like I said, things will go from bad to worse, right? But um, like I said earlier, there's an end game, and Jesus will, all the evildoers, all the P dot 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 files, right? They will perish, right? Whether it be through the sword or through Jesus' word, right? They will perish. All the evildoers will perish. All the wrongdoers, all the criminals, all the Satanists, all the Luciferians, all the witches, the warlocks, all the people who practice evil in any way, shape, or form, they all will perish through the sword. And Jesus will make sure of that. People who cause harm to children, people who cause harm to teenagers, adults, women, men, you know, everyone who does any type of evil will answer for all of their crimes and sins, right? And their evil activity when Jesus returns. So, went through years of time. But we could put one and one together and know what you're talking about. But let's, like I used to do back in the day, let's switch that word out from victim to survivor, because you're still here today, and I'm mostly sure that you're living out your life, right? And you're still living a purpose, and you're here with us. So you're a survivor, right? So sometimes people, they need to rearrange the words and allow themselves to know that, if they're still here in life with us, then they are survivors, and they are overcomers, and they are winners in their own right, you know. So, that mentality of between victim versus survivor is crucial and important, and I truly do believe that the more you switch out those words, the more powerful and the more you know filled with purpose you do become. So exactly. I understand with him. I understand. That's why I said what I said before. I said what I said. That you know, uh, definitely no disrespect to you, and I understand where you were coming from. Um, but yeah, there's evil people out there who will loosely use the name of God or Jesus or Christ or faith, and they will misrepresent the genuine Christians and believers, right? And they will muddy the waters, right? Because that's what evil does is they muddy the waters for the rest of us genuine Christians, and they'll somehow be the face of the rest of us when they have nothing to do with us or the faith. So, hmm, yep. But God, but God, He stepped in and He rescued. He lifted up. He ran. uh, I'm sorry. You know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to. Uh, yeah, no, I get it, bro. I get it. I get it. I get it. Yeah, you enjoyed that, did you? You enjoyed that, huh? He raised. He saved me. But anyways, yeah, I mean, we'll get into the information and stats about that other topic in a second. I mean, we're celebrating, right? We're having a good time. We're celebrating Resurrection Sunday, so why not put a little stank on it, right? Um, exactly. But God, say it with me now. Can I get an amen? But God, He stepped in. He pulled me out of the dirt. He lifted me up. And He raised me up in His glory. Can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to. I had to. Just again, just to put some stank on it. But amen. Amen. All glory and praise to God. By the way, if it weren't for Him, I'm good. I'm glad to hear that I still got it. Glad to hear that I still got a little bit left in me. Yeah, yeah, the piano. Bling, 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 bling. Yeah, you know what? I wonder if I can find some of that piano sounds over here. I wonder if I could find. I just want like the piano sounds. Um, that's true. Uh, because if I could find them, Trying to find like the fast one. Come on. Okay, I think I might have found one. That, by the way, that should be like a default sound that StreamYard can. Okay, it's not what I was looking for, but I found something. Am headed to Key West in June. No, it is. It is not my area specifically. I can't say what area, but I will say it's near the Central Florida area. Um, Maybe if you message me afterwards or something, I'll tell you specifically in private. Um, but no, no Key West. It's funny when I was growing up in West Palm Beach years ago. We used to visit Key West like every so often. Um, but no, it's not where I live now. I live somewhere completely different right now. To a certain degree, yes, I would agree. To a certain degree, I'm a. It's funny. I love the peace of the countryside, right? Because I'm a peaceful person at heart, and I'm a homebody, right? But I don't know if it's because of the places I grew up in, right? Grew up in Orlando, Kissimmee, Bayamon, um, and other city-ish areas. I'm more of a city boy. Like sure, as far as like living goes, I guess I would prefer living in a somewhat countryside type area. But when it comes to commuting and spending time, I'd rather spend it in the city, if that makes sense. But anyways, here I just wanted to just poke a little fun at I wanted to poke a little fun at the whole Oregon thing. And this is not what I was looking for specifically, but it's close to it. So I mean, oh what? All right, hold on. Let me see why y'all can't hear it. Um, y'all should be able to hear it. Let me double check the StreamYard. Oh, okay. So it was probably just like a delay. All right.
Apparently, you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible. Or Vibe Code.
Let me hold on. Let me play it again. Y'all missed out. Okay, wait, hold on, Rachel. So now that you said that, I have a question. I have a serious. I know it's gonna sound like a dumb question, but it's an actual serious question because I've heard it been pronounced Louisiana, and I've also heard it pronounced Louisiana. Which is the correct pronunciation for the love of God? Because I personally prefer Louisiana just because um, it has that I in there, right? So that's why I prefer saying Louisiana it sounds better to me, and it sounds more accurate because of the I in there. But I've heard people say Louisiana, like without the I. Like when I hear like the Popeyes commercial, Louisiana, right? Right. That's exactly. That's the way I've always said it too. Up until like a few years ago, where I heard it pronounced Louisiana. Okay, so the correct way is Louisiana. Louisiana. Okay. All right. I just wanted to just confirm with you since you're from there. Um, and it's always good to ask the what you call it, the original, well, not original, but like the common people who have lived there all their lives, or natives, however you want to call it. Okay, so now you've with the so wait, I'm confused. Wait. All right, I'm sorry. Maybe which way is it? Is it with the I? You pronounce it right with the I. So like how Jules said it, like Lou Louis. Okay, so Louisiana. Okay, all right. So the way I used to say it, so this way, the way that you're both saying it right now, Louisiana. Okay, all right, good, because that was my preferred way of saying it and pronouncing it. I've never liked not pronouncing the easy. And you know what's funny? Like I think, okay, good. I wish that was right for everything in life, but it's not. Um, I think back when Nelly came out with Country Grammar, and he pronounced it Louisiana. I think that's why I got so attached to saying it that way, right? But then, like a few years back, someone pronounced it differently, and I was thrown off. I was like, "Wait, which is the right way of saying it?" But okay, so Nelly was right. Nelly was right all this time. Okay, perfect. That's all I needed to know. That's good enough for me. Awesome. All right. So yeah, now I can kind of just share a little bit more of this. I just want to share just a little bit of it, just because I was, doing the whole preacher's voice earlier, imitating a Sunday Baptist church preacher. No offense, no disrespect or offense to Baptist preachers. I love y'all. I do. I got love and respect for y'all, and especially how y'all are able to keep your voice intact after all the shouting, and praising throughout the length of your ministries. So, no disrespect at all to any Baptist church preacher or pastor, or however they call themselves at this point. I wouldn't even know. But nothing but love for y'all. Just in case, I don't want no one to think like, oh, he's making fun of them. No. I actually have huge respect for organ players at these churches, because I mean it takes a lot of skill and a lot of talent to play the organ like that. I mean, huge respect, mad props to every single one of those, like, Sunday worship pianists or organ players. I'm just talking to LSU. Is that Louisiana State University, or because isn't I forget? Is it Louisiana, or is that? I mean, I'm assuming that's what you mean. Okay, if you're bringing it up, I'm making an educated guess that it is Louisiana. Um, and that is awesome if that's the case. Um, we'll get into that in a second. Alan, thanks for being here. I appreciate the love and support. Um, but here, let's get back to this because this is the more important um, part of our faith, right? Those of us who believe in Christ, those of us who believe in the gospel, right, for what it is. This is the most important part because had he not risen, there would be no point to the gospel. There would be no point to our faith. Like it would just be a social club. If he had not risen, which he did, Jesus Christ rose from the dead, okay, and is sitting at the right of the Father right now, right? And this is why we have fellowship. This is why we preach the gospel. This is why we talk about Jesus. This is why we we try our best to lead people to Christ because he is risen. He has risen. He is risen, and he's sitting at the right of the heavenly Father, right? Um, and he is reigning along with him, right? And that's the most important thing, man. Like, I mean, everything else in between, oh, don't wear jeans, don't wear earrings, keep your hair long, wear a dress, yada yada, right? Everything else that's thrown into the mix is just thrown into the mix. But the important part about the gospel is Jesus was born of a virgin, lived a regular, normal, average human life. When he became of age, he started his ministry. He performed miracles, healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, resurrected the dead, healed the sick, right? He taught everything that he had to teach about heaven, about God, about how he wanted us to live our life and how for us to get close to God, right? And how to build that relationship with God and what all it takes, right? How we're supposed to live our life. And then he died a he died in the most excruciating, painful, merciless way that any innocent person could die. Right? He was tortured. He was abused physically in a lot of ways. Right? Um, he was just treated like the worst criminal while being the most innocent man that the earth has ever seen. Right? And yet he was treated like the very worst criminal who ever lived, right? So he was um, unjustly bruised and unfairly tortured until death. And while he was dead, he conquered death. He preached to those who were in Sheol, right? And resurrected himself, preached a few more times, and showed himself to everyone around him, showed himself to his disciples, he showed himself to other people. Other people witnessed his resurrection. There's accounts of it in Roman history, like Roman soldiers and people, that witnessed this. They wrote it down in their books. So there's records out there. So you can't tell me otherwise. It just is. It just is a reality. And for those who will ignore facts like that, they'll ignore the historical accounts from other people who had no business in putting these types of information into their history or logging any of it. They would not benefit of it from it at all, and they still put it in their books, right, and put it in their records. Um, for the people ignoring all this, you just want to ignore because you want to ignore. Like there's nothing worse. There's no worse blind man than a blind man who doesn't want to be healed, right? So the people who will ignore all that and just say, "Oh, that's not true. It's just fantasy." Hey, listen, man, you can lie to yourself all you want. You can think it's a fantasy. You can think it's fairy tales. Do whatever you want, but the facts are there. The evidence is there. The proof is there, etc. And I'm going to share a few videos talking about this topic real quick. Yeah. Listen, yeah. But that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, he knows we're not going to be able to go every day without sinning. He's aware that every now and then we will or might fall, right? The point is to continue walking along his side, even when that happens. Like, even if and when we do like fall and fail, right? And we sin, he wants us to, even when that happens, to continue to walk by his side and to continue to put him at the center of our lives and to continue to follow him regardless. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm about to share some of these videos. So here, I'm gonna, come on, man. I hate when YouTube does that. It's like you're trying to like reel back the little playback button or whatever. It acts weird. Anyways, let me just double check here. Come on, that's okay. So dumb. All right. All right, so let's listen to this for a few, and then I'll continue on with the conversation.
I went to an expert on the human mind. I laid out all the historical data and I said, now, Dr. Collins, wouldn't you admit to me these disciples didn't encounter the resurrected Jesus? They just had hallucinations. And he looked at me and said, that's not possible.
There's three questions I've decided I'm going to keep cycling back to over and over and over again because they're so critically important. And they are, is Jesus alive or dead? I mean, bottom line. Number two, can you know whether he is? Number three, does it matter even if you did know? See, the resurrection is the claim of the Christian faith. While some may believe in God for other reasons, for Christianity to be true in full, the resurrection is a non-negotiable. Now, the Apostle Paul beautifully acknowledges this, and I love that about it. So it's very helpful to have like these built-in, memorable insight kind of things into why Christians would believe it could happen. Now, Lee Strobel, whose Christian story I had a close-up look at almost from the time it started, he does a great job here of offering researched evidence in an accessible form that you kind of remember and grapple with. And so I'm going to let this play out with a few comments here and there. So let's check it out.
I'd like to summarize the evidence using 4 words that begin with the letter E. And I'll go through it quickly, but if you have any follow-ups or questions, I can elaborate on any of them. The first E stands for execution. Was Jesus dead after being crucified? And the answer is absolutely yes. As this was said in the film, there is no record anywhere of anybody ever surviving a full Roman crucifixion. Even the Journal of the American Medical Association, which is a secular, peer-reviewed scientific medical journal, carried an investigation into the medical and historical evidence for the death of Jesus and said, there's a quote, clearly, the weight of the historical and medical evidence indicates that Jesus was dead even before the wound to his side was inflicted. We've got, you could go to an atheist New Testament scholar like Gerd Ludemann, formerly of Vanderbilt, and he'll tell you that Jesus' death as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable. And one of the reasons I found that it's so universally agreed by historians that he was dead after being crucified is that when you study ancient history, we're lucky if we have 1 or 2 sources to confirm a fact. But for the death of Jesus, we not only have multiple early first-century accounts in the documents of the New Testament, we've also got 5 ancient sources outside the Bible confirming and corroborating that he died. Josephus, first-century Jewish historian who worked for the Romans, Tacitus, another early historian, Mirabar Serapion, Lucian, even the Jewish Talmud admits he was dead. So the first E is execution. Jesus was dead.
And I would add that was problematic for the entire enterprise because to be crucified in those days was the ultimate in grotesque insult. It was humiliation. So going around saying this guy was God, it just, that said the exact opposite. And so they wouldn't have just kind of come up with this idea. It would have been problematic.
Second, he's the most interesting. stands for early. We have early accounts or early reports that Jesus rose from the dead. In other words, reports that go right back to the beginning. Why is that important? Because I used to think, like a lot of skeptics, that the resurrection was a legend.
Right.
And I knew it took time for legend to develop in the ancient world. So I figured, 100, 150 years after the death of Jesus, legends developed, mythologies were spun, stories were invented, and that's where the idea of the resurrection came from. But what I learned, and I've continued this investigation to the present day, I continue to look into this. What I've learned, I think, decimates the claim that the resurrection is a legend. And here's why.
Most Christian men think ministry and business don't mix. But what if your business could be your...
We have preserved for us a creed of the earliest Christians. A creed, a statement of conviction based on eyewitness accounts that the earliest Christians right there in the first century would rally around based on facts that they knew to be true. So this creed contains the essence of Christianity. It says Jesus died. Why? For our sins. He was buried. On the third day, he rose from the dead. And then it mentions the specific names of eyewitnesses and groups of eyewitnesses to whom he appeared, including 500 people at once. And then it says parenthetically, by the way, a lot of those folks are still around. So if you don't believe me, go
ask them.
Go out and talk to them yourself. If they're around, you can question them. Now, this creed has been dated back by scholars to within months of the death of Jesus. How do we know? The Apostle Paul preserved it for us. He wrote a letter to the church in Corinth about 21 to 25 years after the death of Jesus. He recounts this creed, and he indicates past tense. I already gave you this creed earlier. So let's say within 20 years, he had given this creed to the church in Corinth. We could stop there, and that would be very impressive when you consider the first two biographies of Alexander the Great by Arrian and Plutarch, written 400 years after his life, and they're generally considered reliable. So within 20 years is really good, but we can go back earlier because we know that Paul used to be Saul of Tarsus, a persecutor, a hater of Christians. 1 to 3 years after the death of Jesus, he's on the road to Damascus. Boom, he has this encounter with the risen Christ. He becomes the Apostle Paul. Immediately, he goes into Damascus and he meets with some apostles. Now, many scholars believe this is when he was given the creed that he later writes in the letter. But others say, wait, it may have been 3 years later. 3 years later, Paul goes to Jerusalem and he meets for 15 days with two eyewitnesses to the resurrection who are specifically named in the creed, Peter and James. And the Greek word that Paul uses in Galatians to describe this meeting suggests that this was an investigative inquiry. They were checking each other out. What do you know? What did you see? What do you experience? And some scholars believe this is when he was given the creed by two people specifically named in the creed. Wow. But either way, this means within 1 to 6 years after the death of Jesus, this creed is already in existence. And therefore, the beliefs that make up that creed go back earlier, virtually to the cross itself. In fact, probably the greatest scholar in this area, Dr. James D.G. Dunn, says, this is a quote, he says, this tradition, by that he means this creed, we can be entirely confident was formulated as a creed, as tradition, within months of the death of Jesus, within months. That is far too quick to write it off as a legend. In fact, one of the greatest classical historians who ever lived was A.N. Sherwin White of Oxford. He understood the rate at which legend developed in the ancient world. And he said the passage of 2 generations of time is not even enough for legend to grow up and wipe out a solid core of historical truth. We don't have 2 generations of time passing here. We got a news flash.
Right.
And news flash, it goes right back to the beginning. So we have early, and we've got other early accounts right from the first century in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the book of Acts, and so forth. So
I like the fact that there's somebody out there that has actually thought about and counted out how long it would take for a legend to develop. I know there's people like that do that, and you can show those things. It's also important to note. I remember it was popularly thought when I was in school, like back in the 1800s. When I was in college, that wasn't the going theory. This was kind of a newer discovery. They used to talk about legendary development when I was in school, as that was the explanation that was given in sort of unbelieving circles or more liberal-minded Bible scholars. That was their explanation for later Greek thought, and that's where they came up with the resurrection. So this is something that kind of revolutionized thinking ever since I graduated all those years ago. By the way, everybody, we'd like to, here at One Life Network, we'd love to discuss
Yeah. So like I I appreciate the different forms and ways that, you know, Lee Strobel um brings to the table, of like different ways that you can, right, kind of like dissect the whole topic and dissect the whole like history and all the information that's provided. Historians, like he just mentioned, people who, you know, like all they do is like measure certain like time periods, and when is something like begins to have legs of a legend or like a fantasy or whatever, or when it remains like factual and accurate and, you know, information wise and historically, um, you know, true to the T, or true to the original story, right? I didn't even know that there was people who dedicated the time and life and career to doing that, but the fact that there is, and that the fact that, you know, they can, you know, pretty much gauge when something can or is considered to either be a legend or start to grow the legs for it to be a legend, versus no, this is still, you know, the closest thing to the, you know, accurate events as they happened, when mentioned or when talked about or when preached about. You know, I think it's a huge blessing to have people like that. But yeah, let's continue on
these things. And so we've set up a Patreon account now, and we would love to hear from you. That's where you can interact. And we do have a piece on the resurrection and on Christian worldview specifically that you can get to through that, and would love to hear from you and see you interact about the meaning.
Accounts, which I believe discounts the possibility that it's a legend. Third E is for empty tomb. And there's lots of reasons why we believe the tomb is empty, but I think the most convincing reason is that even the opponents of Jesus implicitly admitted that it was empty. How do we know? Well, because when the disciples began proclaiming that Jesus had risen, what the opponents of Jesus said, we know there's some sources inside and outside the New Testament, that what the opponents said was, so disciples, Jesus is risen. Opponents, oh, well, the disciples stole the body.
Yeah.
Now, think about that. That's a cover story. They're implicitly admitting the tomb is empty. They're trying to explain how it got empty.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's like if you're a student, I mean, a teacher, and a student comes up to you and says, "The dog ate my homework." That student's admitting, "Look, I don't have my homework, but I can explain what happened to it. Right. The dog ate it." Right. It's the same thing. So everybody's admitting the tomb is empty. That's not the issue. The issue is, how did it get empty? And then the fourth E.
Well, before we go on to the fourth, this is good to lock down. The empty tomb is very important for two reasons. One of it is philosophical and theological. It's huge that there was an empty tomb. But if you want to geek out on something, which I did, I thought it was fascinating research that I did, study the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, because I believe that was the site of there. And there's a lot of reasons to believe that. If you look at it historically, and the research that's been done on it in recent years, that's fun to check out if you really want to explore the whole empty tomb concept and that entire deal. I think you'd have a lot of fun doing that.
Stands for eyewitnesses.
Hi, we're Charity Water. If we lost you at Charity, we get it.
Not only was Jesus' tomb discovered empty, but over a period of time, he appears alive in a dozen different instances to more than 515 people, to skeptics and doubters, to men, to women, to groups, to individuals, indoors, outdoors, daytime, nighttime. The disciples talked to him. They ate with them. They touched him. But here's what's interesting about the eyewitnesses. Remember I said earlier, in ancient history, we're lucky if we have one or two sources to confirm a fact. Well, for the conviction of the disciples that they encountered the resurrected Jesus, we have no fewer than 9 ancient sources inside and outside the New Testament, confirming and corroborating the conviction of the disciples that they encountered the resurrected Jesus. That is an avalanche of historical data.
Yeah. And it's convincing because as you mentioned in the book, I mean, he talks about how the disciples later gave their lives for these claims, and the pushback you got, of course, was, well, people die for lies all the time, and which is true.
Yeah.
But people don't die for things they know to be lies.
Exactly.
And I've repeated that, right? I've repeated that so many times. I got it from him. All right. And my congregation's sick of hearing about it probably, but that is one of the linchpins of your argument.
Absolutely.
When we talk about the tomb being empty, well, the disciples stole the body. What's the problem with that claim? Is that they wouldn't have then given their lives for a lie. If they stole the body, they would have known, and they would have given up at some point and just gone on about their lives. And Rome and the Jews would have been happy to let them do that, but they didn't. They pressed on.
And we have 7 ancient sources, 6 of them outside the Bible, that tell us that the disciples lived lives of deprivation and suffering as a result of their proclamation that Jesus had risen. What actually happened to a few of the disciples gets a little bit blurry in history, but that's not the point. The point is their willingness to die for it.
Right.
And that is established beyond any doubt by the ancient record. And you're absolutely right. That was one of the final blocks that went into the case. Yeah. I mean, because I thought, well, golly, there are all kinds of religious fanatics who will die for what they believe is true. Kamikaze pilots in World War II would crash their planes because they believe spiritually if they died this way, they'd go to heaven.
Right.
Terrorists will die. Why are they willing to die in the process of these crimes that they commit? Because they believe, and they've been taught, and they believe it to the core of their being. If they die this way, they'll go to heaven. But they can't know that for a fact. They just believe it. They were taught it and they believe it. The contrast is the disciples were in a unique position to know for a fact whether this is true or whether it's a lie.
Right.
They talked to the resurrected Jesus. They touched him. They ate with him. They knew the truth.
And they had the empty tomb.
Which backs it up as well. So,
amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong. Now, some people will say, and this is one of my counter arguments that I came up with. A couple of things. One was, well, wait a minute. They didn't bury crucifixion victims. They didn't bury execution victims back in the Roman times. They would throw their bodies in a pit to be eaten by the dogs, or they'd leave them on the cross to be eaten by the birds. So, of course, Jesus' tomb was empty. He wasn't in it in the first place.
And you can see popular books written by some theologians that do make that argument very explicitly. That's kind of a thing. Oh, well, they if you were executed that way, they just kind of threw your body in a pit. And that I've seen that myself.
I thought, yeah, what about that? And then I looked into it, and what did I find? The Roman Digesta, which is a summary of law and procedure from the Roman Empire, specifically does allow for bodies of execution victims to be turned over for burial. Number 2, several years ago, well, probably back in the early 90s, they discovered the body of a buried crucifixion victim. He still had the spike through his heel bone and a piece of the olive wood attached. And so he had been buried. So certainly some were buried. And then just recently, within the last year, they uncovered another crucifixion victim who had been buried, again with the evidence of the crucifixion reflected in the bones. So some indeed were buried.
Yeah.
So that kind of shoots that down. The other argument that I bought for a while was that these were visions or hallucinations, that the disciples didn't really encounter Jesus; they hallucinated.
Okay.
And it's interesting that one of the most famous atheist New Testament scholars, Gerd Ludemann, said that it is certain, historically, this is virtually a quote. He said, "It is historically certain that Peter and the other disciples had experiences after Jesus' death in which Jesus appeared to them as the risen Christ."
Wow.
That's the atheist talking. Well, why?
And that's the newer scholarship that's gone on. Again, when I was in school, it was the legendary process thing was kind of the big deal. Now it's like there's acknowledgement that something did happen to the disciples because the evidence is in of how they lived their lives and so forth. And so that has to be explained if you can maintain kind of a materialist view of the world.
He's still an atheist because he believes these were visions. These were hallucinations. So I'm a journalist. I check things out. So I went to an expert on the human mind, PhD in psychology, professor of psychology for 20 years at a major Midwestern university, written over 20 or 30 books on psychology. He was the president of a National Association of Psychologists.
Wow.
And I laid out all the historical data, and I said, now, Dr. Collins, wouldn't you admit to me these disciples didn't encounter the resurrected Jesus? They just had hallucinations. And he looked at me and said, that's not possible. I said, well, you seem pretty sure of yourself. He said, I am. And he said, you got to understand something about the nature of hallucinations. Hallucinations are like dreams. They happen in individual minds. They don't spread like the common cold. It's not like you can wake your wife up in the middle of the night and say, honey, I'm having a dream about a vacation in Maui. Let's both go back to sleep. We'll have the same dream. We'll save all the airfare. We'll save all the hotel costs. I mean, it'd be great if we could do that, but why can't we do that? Because dreams happen in individual minds, and that's the same with a hallucination. In fact, he looked at me and he said, Lee, your earliest account, your most reliable historically, the earliest account says that 500 people encountered the resurrected Jesus at one time. He said, Lee, 500 people having the same hallucination at the same time would be a bigger miracle than the resurrection.
That was my favorite line in the whole thing, just to help you remember that when it comes to the question, which is the number one question, is Jesus alive or dead? What's the bottom line on that? Can you know? Well, the way you can know is through evidence and evaluating the evidence. And does it matter? We need to get into why that does. And we've got some other videos you can look at. Joe Rogan talked to a scientist and who happened to be a Christian. And then he asked him, why do you believe the resurrection? Why does it matter to you? And he gives an answer in this next video. I hope that helps. See you next time.
Interesting.
There's one major difference between.
I don't know if we should watch that video, but I mean, hold on. What the heck? I think for now that's good enough. It's already 10 p.m. So I think technically now we can kind of like cross over to the other topic. It is really interesting, and it's not the first time that I've brought some of these like videos with this type of information and shared it on here. It's probably the second or third time. Actually, one of the streams with the most views on this channel is a time that I shared, this type of information, and shared other of Lee Strobel's like videos and how he came to Christ through investigating the resurrection and all that. What up, Monarch? Blessings and love to you. Blessings and love to you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, so now that it's 10 p.m. Eastern time, let's jump over to the next topic of the night that I would hope you guys would share forward, because it is a topic near and dear to me, as I know people who have gone through this topic that we're going to talk about right now. And it's a thing that happens on a daily, whether we know it or not, whether we hear about it or not. Yes. And I do believe strongly that, the more that people bring this up in conversation and have healthy conversations about this, the more awareness that's brought to it, then the more that can be done to combat it, right? And have some sort of strategy against it, right, etc. I just need to pick which one of these tabs I can share here. Oh, it's this one. Okay, all right. Crap. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that like it was yesterday. Which I I remember it because something happened through that conversation that I had to kind of like pause it or kind of like take a break from it off of the channel while I was conducting the interview with you, because something else happened or something was being brought up that could have had the channel not banned, but like it could have striked the channel in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if you remember that, but I do. But it was a really good testimony, regardless, in the sense that you were able to talk about it and share your story with us. But here, here's the kind of like summary of Saam, or SAAM, right? And it's actually the 25th anniversary, right? Let's see if I can. It's over here. All right, I don't know if y'all can see that. Yeah, and we will always have the backs of people who want to share their story and share their testimony, and especially if and when they can actually give other people who are in the same position tips and advice on how to get through it or overcome it, right? So, yep, exactly. All right, so it says here, April 2026 marks the 25th anniversary of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, highlighting that over 53% of women and 29% of men in the U.S. experience contact sexual violence in their lifetimes. Statistics show an American is assaulted every 68 seconds, with over 60% of cases going unreported, emphasizing the need for continued prevention. Key 2026 SAAM statistics and trends. Prevalence: more than 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be R-worded in their lifetime. Recent data indicates that 51.1% of female rape victims were assaulted by an intimate partner. Demographic impact: over 84% of American Indian and Alaska Native women experience violence, while 29% of Black women are raped in their lifetime. Reporting: approximately 63% of sexual assaults are not reported to the police. Youth and education: over 26% of college female experience sexual assault. Additionally, 42.2% of female rape victims were first raped before age 18. Impact: sexual violence costs the U.S. approximately $127 billion annually. 2026 focus is 25 years strong. The 2026 campaign, 25 years strong, looking back, moving forward, marks a quarter century of action focusing on community-based prevention and supporting survivors. Consent and safety. Campaigns emphasize that consent is essential and must be freely given. If you or someone you know has been affected by sexual assault, help is available via RAINN's National Sexual Assault Hotline, or by calling 800-656-HOPE. Yeah, so that's like a summary of what SAAM is about. Yo, blessings to you, brother. Ryan from and BCAP is watching. Blessings and love to you, brother. And I responded to you earlier about so I guess like there was like a mix up of me sharing something that you posted. But again, like if at any point in time you need me to share something, I have no problem with doing that. So just always tag me on stuff and I'll happily share it forward. Like I said earlier, it'll be like I never left. It'll be like I never disappeared for like 2 years plus. But yeah, so I've got other statistics somewhere on here. I'm just trying to look at what to share next, because I have a few tabs open. Ooh. I don't know which tab to share next. They're all good tabs. It's just I'm just having trouble picking one. I guess I don't know. Put this one. Yeah. Okay. So there's I know this says like UC San Diego, but I know there's like different awareness event calendars for like per city or per state. This one is specifically San Diego and California. But there's all sorts of stuff in here, like workshops and trainings, and just there's so much stuff out there. I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. And yeah, if and whenever you want me to share something, never hesitate to let me know. I'll share it forward. But yeah, so let's see some of the stuff that they have to offer here as far as like workshops. Wow, it's crazy the amount of. Okay. Ideas in everyday life, customized to address scenarios you may run into in your day-to-day life, like using public transit, going to the grocery store, or studying at a coffee shop. Scenarios that could happen, right? And how to deal with them, I guess. Party ideas, customized to address scenarios in party environments, concerts, and music festivals. Ideas in the workplace, customized to address scenarios in professional setting where you may have to navigate power dynamics. Clarifying consent. And now here's the thing, yo. Like here's my thing. Man, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a grandpa or something, or sounding like some type of like pastor or whatever, because I'm not. I'm nowhere near being a pastor, nor would I want that responsibility. But I can already see. I'm gonna get trolled after this, and there's gonna be a bunch of comments after this. But like, if you're in college, right, which is sadly mostly when stuff happens, because people want to explore their freedom, they want to be independent, they want to like feel empowered, they want to explore their bodies, yada yada yada. Dumb stuff, because it is dumb stuff. It is that way of thinking that just because now you're of legal age and technically you can do whatever you want, like, does not have to mean that you can just willy-nilly just kind of like offer your body as some type of like just unhinged gift to the people around you, right? But that's what happens is kids, they get into college and they see so many opportunities to explore their sexuality and their bodies and blah blah blah. But then that's when there's so many opportunities for so much to go wrong, and God tells us, there's a reason why God tells us to wait like until marriage, is that you can prevent so much heartbreak, and you can prevent so much pain and suffering if you are to wait till marriage. And you can prevent STDs, you can prevent just so much that can go wrong in so many scenarios, but especially college. But but sadly, kids in college, they can't help but to want to have that freedom to kind of like be in a position where technically you can't tell them what to do, right? All you can do is give them the best advice possible and hope and trust that they'll do the right thing. But sadly, that's not the case. Sadly, for the most part, they'll take that freedom and they'll just be so loose with it that then that's where you have like STDs. I talked about it the other stream, how I think it was in Austin or Houston or something like that, where there was like close to 50,000 cases of STDs because of spring break, and a great majority of those numbers are like college students, among others, right? And it's like, you don't want to say I told you so, but at the same time, it's like, I don't mean to quote a certain somebody, but, and this is gonna sound messed up, it is, but I mean, I guess like somebody has to say it, like, you get what you get and you don't get upset, right? If you were smart enough to put yourself in a position where that could have been a possibility, I don't like that that's a reality, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, close to it, close to 50,000. It was like 47,000 something, but it was close to 50,000 STDs, reports of STDs within a number of like days or like a week or something like that. Yeah, and it's like, you don't want to sound like a soulless person, like, oh, that's what you get, but it's like, yo, this is why you wait until marriage. This is why, like, you just, no, for this, because you'll say, oh, but that's why protection exists and that's why condoms exist. Things can still happen with condoms. Condoms can break. Condoms can slip off. Condoms can be removed in the act or during the act. You know what I'm saying? Just don't do it. Just don't put yourself in a position where there's any, even if it's 0.001% of a chance something might happen, whether it be grape or STDs, just don't place yourself in a position where any of it can happen. Just period. Just don't. How about that? Oh no, but you want to have your freedom, you want to do what you will. Okay then. So you get what you get and you don't get upset. Don't cry. Don't argue. Don't, no. Like, you put yourself in a position where any of that is a possibility, then guess what? It's on you. You know what I'm saying? And that's just facts. I don't mean to sound like a soulless jerk or I'm lacking like human touch, because it sucks and it's heartbreaking. But again, they have nothing else. Yeah. Exactly. And there's so much you can do in spring break. Go spend time with your family. You haven't seen them in months. Go spend time with your parents. Go spend time with I don't know. If you have nieces and nephews, go spend time with them. Spend time with your cousins. Spend time with your grandparents. Literally, there's so much you could do. Like, aside from, like, gifting your body to deviance, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's like, that's what you're doing. You're just gifting your body to eat, and that goes both ways. That goes from the females also to the males, because there's deviance on both sides. Like, maybe in my opinion, it's mostly men. That might be the case, right? But realistically, there's deviance on both sides. There's sick people on both sides, and there's careless people on both sides, right? And so just don't put yourself in a position where anything can go wrong, because where things can and might go wrong, they will go wrong, right? I don't know. They're just, and it's funny because like on TikTok, I think it was on TikTok, I forget, but I I shared, right, a post where I'm like, it was like a meme of like I think like Homer sleeping in peace or whatever, and I put something something along the lines of like, oh, me sleeping in peace, knowing that I'm not a loose body and I'm not out there putting my body in a position, to get any STDs. Yeah. touch touch grass, not ass. I'm just, the fact that I can sleep in peace, knowing that I will never get an STD because I'm not promiscuous. I'm a homebody. I keep to myself. I don't allow my body to be in a position where it can be used that way. So it's like I'm at peace. I sleep so in peace, knowing that nobody gets to like use my body that way. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so peaceful. It's so peaceful knowing I will never get an STD ever. Because guess what? I'm not out there, you know what I'm saying, doing anything with anybody, like period. So it's just a relief to me, It's like, that's one of the best feelings in the world where you can go to sleep and you're like, another night without STDs. And then I can wake up in the morning. Yep, another morning without STDs. It's like it's one of the few joys I have in my life is knowing that I will never have an STD. It's so nice. It's so comforting. But the only way to achieve that is to live a what do you call it, an anti-promiscuous life, or there's a word for it, and I used it in the post. It's not celibacy, it's the other one. Abstinence is when you live an abstinent life, you live a peaceful life. You know what I mean? Like, I never put myself in a position where anything, and I never put someone else in a position where that can happen to somebody else. So I'm protecting myself, and I'm protecting everyone else who might want, you know what I'm saying, like some type of like interaction with me. I'm like, nope. Like, I'm not getting anything from anyone, and I'm not gonna like put anybody else in position to where they can contract something or you know what I mean? Just, yeah. Oh my God, Jules, I was gonna share that until until I read the rest of it. I would. Exactly, but it's again, like, you just live so much at peace. You live so peacefully, and you can just like, I don't know. It just puts a genuine smile on my face. Like, yep, another day without, like, another day STD free. I don't know, man. There's few things in my life that I can be happy about, right? There's very few things, but that's one of them. One of them is the fact that I know for a fact, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I will never have STDs because, again, I don't put myself in a position where I can contract them. So, anyways, yeah, like, what else? Supporting survivors. There's a lot. There's a lot of workshops. Um, hmm. Okay, cute or creepy? Practicing cyber safety. With today's technology, staying in touch with people that you care about has never been easier. On the flip side, technology can be used in creepy ways, like to track or control someone. In this workshop, participants identified the digital boundaries, learn about how consent applies to online interactions, differentiate cute and creepy online behaviors, and familiarize themselves with warning signs and resources available for those experiencing stalking, cyber stalking. This workshop can be customized to focus on specific digital platforms or to incorporate population-specific considerations. I mean, technically, it's kind of like a side note here, but it, I guess, kind of still applies to what I just read. Yeah, it is. I've lost count for how long I've been abstinent, but it's close to that same amount. Close to that. I would say, if not that exact amount, I would say like pretty close to it. So anywhere between like 3 to 4 years or 2 to 4 years. And even back when sadly I allowed something to happen, it wasn't like I was all over the place. It was like a mistake that I should have never allowed to happen at all to begin with. And like that was that. It wasn't like I was like out here like looking like, oh, you know, who can I smash? No. It's just something that just got out of hand, and it shouldn't have. And that was that. There was no continuation. There was no ongoing, you know, events or interactions, however you want to call it. But yeah, since then, yeah, pretty much nothing. Absolutely nothing with anyone ever. So kudos to you. But this is, to be more specific, this is a, I mean, here, I'll put it in the live chat so that everybody can go to it. But it's like a sister site to the Rain site, I guess. There goes the link for whoever wants to check it out afterwards. But anyways, what I was going to say was, you know, a lot of people when it comes to like relationships and you know, or not even just relationships, like, you know, like when you're dating or when you get to know someone, right? And females will, for the most part, it's mostly females, they'll argue like, oh, consistency is so important. If a man's not consistent, he doesn't love you. If a man's not consistent, he doesn't care about you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hold up. Yeah, you know who else are consistent? Grapists. You know who else is consistent? Stalkers. You know who else is consistent? Attackers, abusers, psychopaths, sociopaths. The list goes on. So when you hyper focus, oh, if the guy has like lack of consistency, you know, they're not good for you, or, you know, they don't really want you, or they don't really love you, or they don't really care about you. Well, yes, consistency is important, but it should not be the baseline and the main priority for you to be able to, like, you know, dictate whether someone is right for you or not. Because again, psychopaths are consistent, sociopaths are consistent, grapists are consistent, stalkers are consistent. These people like Jeffrey Dahmer are consistent. Yeah. And so don't come to tell me that just because, you know, oh, this person has like so inconsistent, then they're not worth it. Listen, man, be careful. Be careful making that the ultimate priority. Be careful making that the baseline and the top thing of like whether or not you decide when you should keep dating someone or not. But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. Monarch says, okay, when we say that, we mean consistent communication and actions over words. But that's what I mean. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. And this is exactly what I'm trying to get at. So this is why, for me personally, the most important thing over consistency is intent. Because a guy can be consistent with communication, actions, right? The intent should always supersede the consistency. Why is that? Well, because unchecked consistency can be grooming. Again, let me say that again. Unchecked and unverified consistency can be grooming in disguise. Let me say it one more time, just so we're clear. Unchecked, unverified, and unconfirmed consistency can be grooming in disguise. So someone who wants to groom you, they will be consistent in communication. They will be consistent in their actions. They will bring you flowers every day and talk to you sweet words on a daily basis. They will be consistent in actions. But just because they're consistent in all the ways that you want them to be does not necessarily mean that the intent is in the right place. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, the most consistent people in communication, in actions, and what else was it? Because actions speak louder than words, right? Actions speak louder than words. That's a phrase that women love to throw around. Women love to throw around like, oh yeah, like all that talk, but without any actions, because actions speak louder than words. It depends where the intent is. Yeah, that's the scary part. That is the scary part. You'll never truly know. You'll never truly know unless, and this is a good question. It's a fair question. And I applaud you for making that question because it is a real question. She says, I'm assuming it's a she. I don't Monarch, I'm gonna assume you're a she. You ask, so then how do I know who is a good man? I've experienced that. Okay. This is where having God at the center of your life and Christ at the center of your life and having discernment will come into play. If you have discernment in the spirit, she says, yes, I'm a female. If you're of the faith and you have God in your heart and you have Christ in your mind and the Holy Spirit abounds in you, it will give you discernment and you will be able to tell and feel when something is off in somebody. You will be able to detect when someone's heart is in the right place and when it's not. So I know it's going to sound like, oh, but what if I'm not a believer? What if I'm not a Christian? Then what? That's the only way. I'm sorry to tell you. I am sorry to tell you that's one of the most surefire ways of you knowing is for you to have discernment. And in order for you to have discernment, your relationship with God has to be on point. Because if you're just a believer, but your relationship with God is not strong, you're not going to have the discernment that you have to have. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is one of those times where literally you have to say, let Jesus take the wheel. And again, there's going to be a few of you who say, oh, but that's not fair. What about if I'm an atheist or what if I'm not a believer? Then what? Sorry to tell you, then you're not going to know. Well, first things first, welcome to the family of God, sister. God bless you. You have made the most important decision and the best decision that you can ever make in your entire life. This is better than choosing what you're going to study for your career. This is better than choosing the right apple at a grocery store. This is better than choosing the right diet plan for you and the right fitness goal for you. This is the best decision and the smartest decision you've ever made in your entire life. So I applaud you for being a born-again Christian. So and it's okay. It's okay when for us to have sometimes like doubt, or sometimes we feel like we have to challenge God and be like, God, am I hearing this correctly? Is this what you're saying? Confirm to, this is where you ask God, right? Whether it be in your heart, in your mind, or write it in a piece of paper, put it in like a little bottle, and put certain signs before God and say, God, if this is what you meant, then confirm it to me by, doing this as a sign for me, you know, uh, make this sign, become true, for there to be confirmation that this is what you told me, this is what you promised me, this is what you're showing me, etc. God does want us to test him as far as like challenging, how do you call it? I'm trying to find the right way to say this. He does want us to test him in that manner, where we test his promises for us, or that we test, uh, how great his power is in our lives, right? Or testing his communication with us, right? So, ask God for confirmation on the matter. That's the best thing you could do. But again, discernment, and I've said this for years, and I will continue to say it for years, years, years. Discernment, discernment, discernment. Discernment will keep you out of trouble 9 times out of 10. Discernment will always give you direction. It will help you get to the truth at a much faster rate, and it will help you decipher, quickly, whether something is of God or not. So ask God for discernment, ask God for confirmation, and it's the only surefire way you can be at peace, and you can, um, know, when someone is trying to hurt you, or if they're trying to bless you and protect you, right? Um, but yeah, again, welcome to the family of Christ. Welcome to, I hope here, if you're not already subscribed, I hope you subscribe to the channel. This is not a Christian channel per se, but it is a Christ-centered channel. So I'm a Christian, and my other 3 co-hosts, they're also Christian, right? They're of the faith. But we don't really, like, we'll talk about, like the Bible and the faith and the gospel from time to time. For the most part, we tend to talk about other current event topics, or just, deep conversations about other topics altogether. Music industry, entertainment industry, news, stuff like that. But we are a Christ-centered channel. So, if you are looking for a channel where you can kind of like fellowship with other believers, this channel is for you. Along with like other channels like Fallen World Films, and I forget the name of a few of them, but that's the first one that comes to mind right away. Fallen World Films, So yeah, if you're not subscribed, I do hope that you do subscribe to the channel, for, more streams like this and videos similar to this. But yeah. So, end point and in summary, like, do not put the whole like action over words as a baseline for you to trust somebody, because again, not to sound it's one process, no Lord's guiding the way. Don't want to change the subject. No, you're good, it's fine. Yeah, just to kind of like wrap things up with my train of thought. In summary, my advice: I'm not an expert, I'm not a relationship expert, I'm not any type of expert. This is just from someone who has and investigated certain cases, right? And have noticed a pattern to where sociopaths, psychopaths, serial killers, and rapists, and other types of evil people have proven the fact that they can groom somebody because their actions spoke louder than words. We should not use the whole actions over words or consistency as a baseline to trust somebody, because that could easily be an evil person disguising those actions with under or over evil intents, right? So intent should be the main thing. What is this person's intention? You know, is this person, is this person like protecting me in the sense that, they're not staying alone with me in private places? Are they, making sure that we're out in public? Are they making sure that we're never alone for too long? Where opportunities for temptation can present themselves. Are they, are the conversations that they have with me sexual in any manner, or do they protect me from sexual conversations? These are all things to consider. Way much over actions over words, and way much over consistency. If this person is protecting you in the right ways, he doesn't talk sexually to you, um he doesn't put you in a position where, again, temptation can lend itself to sneak in for something to happen. Do they try, if you're dating, right? Do they try to date somewhere public where you could be seen, right? And if you're dating, do they take a long time to take you back home, or do they keep you for long? Again, lending it for it to be an opportunity for temptation to sneak in, or do they try to take you back home as quickly as possible? These are all things to consider. These are all things to think about. These are all things to reflect on, right? Because these things are ways that you can see when someone is protecting you, spiritually, sexually, emotionally, right? These are all things to consider. If they, right, exactly. It is annoying because it's like you would want it to be true, where like consistency is the baseline and the main argument for like if someone is worth, continuing to date or not. But again, not to sound like a broken record, a lot of times these rapists and evildoers can masquerade consistency and actions over words over their evil intentions. So just, just be mindful on how they are treating you throughout. Are they protecting you in all the right ways? Are they making sure that they take you back home safely as quickly as possible, leaving little to no space for any wrongful interactions to happen, right? Or do they keep you for longer, in a secluded area, in a private area, because they want to be alone with you? Again, those moments landing themselves for something to happen potentially, right? But anyways, um, yeah, I think that'll do it for tonight. I think I've already shared enough wisdom as it is. So I won't wrap it up right away. I will leave this space open for like questions or any further tips or advice that anyone in here might want to share with anybody else watching this right now. As far as like I go, I'm done bringing up information. I'm sure there's more information that can be shared, but already with the statistics I brought earlier, I think it's good enough for the point to get across, right? Um, but yeah, like in the live chat, if anybody wants to share anything, their story, the testimony, advice that they want to give to other survivors, or I don't know, whatever you guys want to talk about in the live chat, I'm okay with watching you guys interact. But yeah, I hope, what I have said so far does serve as helpful tools, that can be used to help you guys protect yourselves, right? Because while I'm not a pastor, I have been told many times throughout the years that I have a heart of a pastor, or God's heart, right? And it just means that I truly, genuinely care about people to a greater degree than most people do. And I really do generally, truly care about everyone watching right now. Whether I've known you for a long time or whether I just met you, everyone here who's known me for a long time, they know how I am and who I am, and they know that my care for people is genuine, and I care for everyone's safety. I care for everyone's well-being. I care for everyone's, for them to be protected. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, technically it did, and it has. It happened to the woman that I love. Before I met her, and during the time that I knew her, or was getting to know her, it did happen to her, and it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Like it's frustrating it's an understatement. It's it's heart crushing to have to listen to the woman you love um, bring that up in conversation, how it happened, with who it happened, when it happened, where it happened, you know, everything in between. Um, and as someone who cares about her, and as someone who loves her tremendously, good night, Rachel. Um, the only thing that I wanted to do at the time, truly, was to somehow find a way to buy a ticket, fly across the states, find the guy who did that to her, and just beat their face in to where it's unrecognizable, and potentially even, mess up their hands badly so that they could never touch her or anyone ever again. These are all thoughts that crossed my mind the moment she expressed to me what had happened. Um, as someone who considers themselves a protector, like me, I mean, it's the reason why I think I always end up in positions where I'm either some type of like uh, protector, surveillance, or security officer, is because in nature I am a protector at heart. Like I'm someone who loves to protect, or finds passion in protecting others. And so I always end up with a job or a type of position where I'm some type of like security officer or security guard or something along those lines. And it's because I do find passion and purpose in protecting others. So it sucked when she came to me and told me what she told me, that I couldn't do anything at the time. So much I wanted to do. I wanted to, rip the guy's head off. Um, Alas, sadly, I could not. Um, but I wanted to. I wanted to pretty much make sure he was never able to do anything to her or anyone ever again. But sadly, that's not how life works. So yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, I did kind of experience that with her over time, where she would be okay for days, weeks, and months on end, and then out of nowhere, there would be some type of like episode, and it sucks, man. Like, it really sucks, because it makes it so hard for the people to trust people, right? People that go through that experience, it makes it harder for them to trust anyone in general, right? Yeah. Yep. But, again, this is why you have to pay attention to what individuals do for your protection and safety versus what they do for their own benefit. If you're going out with a guy, and again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record. If you're going out with a guy and the guy has a pattern where when they date you, they want you all for themselves, and extremely private areas where there's no one around for long periods of time, they're opening the doors of possibilities and potential for temptation to sneak in, and therefore potentially allowing things to get out of hand, versus someone who is watching for your safety and protection, that when you're dating them, they make sure that you're in a public setting, there's people around, you leave no room. I mean, they leave no room for temptation to sneak in, and so many other factors that go into it. I'm someone who's like that. When I'm dating somebody and I'm officially in a committed, official, formal relationship, right? And even when I'm not, but mostly and mainly when I am in one, I make sure that all these matters are handled correctly. If we're gonna date, we're gonna go to a public setting. People are there. People are watching. I'm leaving no room for temptation to sneak in. Like, if I'm driving you back home, I'm not going to veer off to somewhere else just to spend more time with you. Again, leaving no room for temptation. So if I'm taking you back home, I'm taking you back home. That's what it is. I'm not. And I know it sounds like, oh, but that's not romantic. Listen, when you care about someone and you love someone, you have to do things a certain way to protect that person. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. But anyways, we got about 10 more minutes left before I bounce and let you guys go. I really hope good. And I truly do, like, again, I'm not any type of expert. So don't take my words as gospel truth. But I hope the advice that I'm giving does give you more of an insight of, helping you find ways to help you determine, who has good intention and who doesn't, right? I mean, in summary, someone who has good intentions, they're never gonna allow any room for temptation to sneak in. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. When someone loves you and cares about you, they're going to protect you every which way possible from sexual immorality. They're going to protect you from sexual sin. They're going to protect you emotionally. They're going to protect you spiritually. They're not going to talk sexually to you. They're not going to they're just not going to give any air to any sexual sin to live in you guys. They're going to make sure that, you know, there is no room for sexual sin or sexual immorality to take place within your dating. So, I mean, yeah, I hope that helps. I really do hope everything that I'm saying is of help to any of you, because I know it's helped me. So. Really, I hate having like a runny nose, man. And it's not runny, but it's like, you know, I guess partially runny. So it's frustrating. Okay, I got like 8 minutes left before I bounce. That's awesome. That I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that. That's I mean, if it does help in any way, shape, or form, then, you know, all glory to God, obviously. Every and all glory to God. But, you know, I'm glad that it does help in some way. So I don't know who else all is here right now, because I know Rachel left. But I mean, I see the number count up in the right corner, but I can't see everything. I know there's a few people in here, Monarch and Jules. But if you're still, whoever is all still here, you know, you can say hi, or I don't know, put a hand emoji. I don't know. But yeah. I just wanted to share those two topics today. You know, just because I was unaware. Oh, okay. I was unaware up until a few days ago that this was a thing, and I'm glad this is a thing, because I mean, it really is needed. It's really, really needed. And I mean, again, the more the word is spread, and the more you know, awareness is spread about this, the better it is for the survivors and people who have gone through it or are going through it, right? And hopefully prevent from others from going through it, right? That's the whole point. Yeah, I 1,000% agree. 1,000%. It should be talked about more. And again, what also should be talked about more is ways for people to, you know, not insert themselves in potential scenarios where something could happen, right? And it's not anybody's fault. Sometimes really you could be doing everything right, and somehow, for whatever reason or circumstance, something could potentially go wrong still, right? And that's a scary thought, where you could be doing everything right and something could still go wrong. But it's kind of like how I learned at the airport when I worked as non-government, you know, TSA. Like, it was privately contracted TSA. You know, mitigate, right? The more you mitigate the possibilities, the better. You can never fully 1,000% guarantee that the plane in flight is 1,000% safe all the time. But what you can do is you can mitigate in all the areas possible, so that that is closer to a reality versus not. So same thing with this. The more things that you can do to help not insert yourself in a scenario where something could happen, the better, right? So the more advice or tools that you have at your disposal to know what to do in different scenarios, the better. So that's why I brought up what I brought up about, you know, pretty much discernment and you know, what does this person do? Like, how are they protecting me in all these areas, or are they, you know, doing things that might open the possibility to for you know, fornication and sexual sin to sneak in, you know? So yeah. Oh man. Anyways, got 3 minutes left. So if anybody wants to chime in and talk about something, it is extremely helpful. And I didn't know about the site until like today. So I mean, but that's not the only site though. I had a few tabs up. I sadly I exited from some of them, which sucks because now let's see if I can find them again. Okay, here we go. Here's one. I'm just waiting for it to load, but this is the one that Jules was talking about earlier, basically. You know, it's pretty much like a sister site in a way. But there's different websites that dedicate their time and efforts to this topic. It just depends on what you're going for. So like the page that I was sharing before this one, it's a San Diego, California. Well, not the one I shared before, but the one before the one I last shared. It was like a San Diego, California website with like workshops geared towards the topic, right? But yeah, the one here, this one, this is just a separate one altogether. But as long as you're looking terms up that are linked to the cause, like SAAM, right? Or this one, right? I guess here, this is another one. There's a bunch of different websites and pages that you can, look up. But all in all, I hope anyone going through this, sadly, never feel that you can't reach out. Just use, use your best judgment and use good discernment, and reach out to the correct people. Not everybody that you reach out to can or will want to help. But when you do reach out to the right people, you will get the help that you need and the help that you're looking for. So I'll leave this one up last before I end things here. But anyways, for those of you who stayed the course, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I really hope this was of a blessing for everyone here. And, if you're wanting to share this content forward to someone that that you care about and love, that went through this or is going through this, right? Or someone who you want to help prevent go through this, right? A nephew, a niece, etc. Then definitely share this forward with them. And yeah. Yep. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yep. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Thorn, that's a good one. But anyways, God bless you all. Love every single one of you guys. Thanks for your love and support for the channel. Please, please, please. Yes. I mean, she's my ex-girl now, but yes, I still care about her and love her. So I do appreciate you praying for her. Her name is Emily. And yeah, all prayers are welcomed. And yeah, you guys have a blessed night. Happy Resurrection Sunday. And hopefully I will be back throughout the week. More specifically, I guess Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Well, Thursday through Sunday, I will be on late afternoon or evening, and I guess from tomorrow to Wednesday, I'll be here in the early afternoon. So, yeah, that's going to be the schedule for the moment while things settle and I'm able to kind of like, get a better feel of this new job that I'm about to start tomorrow. And so we'll see. But yeah, you guys stay blessed and safe out there. Pray, 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 and pray for discernment, pray for wisdom, pray for protection. And until next time, this is Q with Vision IView TV on YouTube. Until next time, God bless and peace out.